Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to another episode of Canopy Cast with your hosts Christopher McGurn, John Michael Price, and Michael O'Connor. Canopy Cast is a guest-based podcast that showcases an ecosystem of expertise through thought leadership and innovation. We bring people together to provide value for our audience through impactful stories and experiences. Canopy Cast, an ecosystem of expertise.
Today's episode is brought to you by Oxenham Group. Disengaged employees cost U.S. companies up to $550 billion per year, and a recent Gallup poll showed that only 33% of the U.S. workforce considers itself engaged. How are you ensuring that the people you hire are engaged? The Oxenham Group is a recruiting company that focuses on why a person takes a job and what makes them stay. They do this by understanding one's motivation, skills, and personal mission. Oxenham's proprietary process focuses on three main areas: sociologist-prepared questions, IBM Prove-It assessments, and Gallup Clifton Strengths. The combined results give the interviewer valuable insight into the potential for close alignment and the likelihood of engagement. Reach out today to learn more about how you can identify highly engaged people and harness the power of alignment with Oxenham Group. For more information, please call 605-610-3026 or visit their website at oxenhamgroup.com. Hey everyone, and welcome back to another episode of Canopy Cast. My name is Christopher McGurn with my two co-hosts, John Michael Price and Michael O'Connor. Today we have a very special guest, Nathan Simmonds. Nathan, welcome to this episode of Canopy Cast.
Thank you for having me. I'm doing amazing. I'm just super grateful for being here, and I just want to share, give, and just experience some of the brother love that's going on right here, right now.
Amen to that, man. Thank you so much. For all of you listeners and viewers, Nathan is a career and leadership coach. We're going to be getting into that, what that actually means and what that looks like on the logistical side of things, and also just what he's learned from that. This episode is very much, focused on who Nathan is and what he does, what inspired him to do that. So Nathan, I would love to start out with, what is your story? What's your background? How did you get into what you're doing today? What was the inspiration for that?
What's the language kind of rules on this podcast? I didn't ask that before we hit record it.
Be yourself. You're good.
Fine. Yeah, I was, in short, the thing that really triggered me, and there's a lot of events that have happened through my life, I just got really frustrated with how shit leadership was and how deficient leadership development actually was, and what people needed, and the gap between what they were getting and the mismatch between people in businesses thinking, yeah, I'm doing a great job, or yeah, I'm a great leader, and actually just the disparity between those two things and how badly they were treating people, how badly they were treating themselves. And in short, several times in my career, I've just lost my shit with people. And I was super frustrated. So I'm there pointing my finger saying, you're shit, you're rubbish, you're out of order, blah, 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 blah. But all the time I'm pointing the fingers at everybody else, I'm not pointing the fingers at me. And do you know what? I was doing an okay job, but my arrogance at that point in my career was, it was expanding rapidly, because I was too, like I said, I was doing the finger pointing and blaming. And all of a sudden I just went, hold on a minute, there's a gap. No, the thing that I lack is the thing that I'm meant to be giving. And when you start to comprehend it, I'm like, okay, shit, what do I want to do about this? What difference do I want to make? What do I need to learn in order to bridge that gap to make a difference in that person's life? And it's not their fault that they don't know, it's their leader's fault, and the leader of that leader, because they haven't had the skills in the first place to pass that stuff down into the kind of the next generation, that lineage of leaders that are going to come after them. And I went, something's got to change here. So what I do is I've taken all my experiences, all my frustrations, all my failures, all my falling down, packaged them up, and I've laid over the top of that coaching qualifications. I've laid over the top of that training experience of being, from real life situations and developing leaders and testing this stuff out. And what I say is I teach uncommon things in uncommon ways that make a fucking difference.
And I think that's so beautiful, so powerful, that, your biggest difficulty that you had, right? The arrogance that you mentioned earlier, you took that, and then from learning, from that experience, from that frustration, from the failures that you personally went through and experienced, you took all of that stuff and now you harnessed it to help others. Yeah. And I think that's absolutely beautiful and powerful and inspirational. And thank you for sharing that. And I want to dive into that more. I want to I want to go and just kind of hear, like, let's get into it, right? Of just like what was that turning point for you when you were going through all of this, and you're pointing the fingers as you mentioned, and all of a sudden it was just, and it switched, like, or at least maybe not overnight. It takes a lot of work, it takes time, it takes effort to actually make the change. But when was it that the first time you actually noticed, like, oh my gosh, like, this is a problem, I need to address this? Like, when was that turning point for you?
In truth, that turning point, and there's been multiple points where the frustration was building through, like lots of them. It's not just one event where it's like a broken pipe. It's a block pipe, and the pressure's building up, and the welds are starting to give, and you can hear the metal stretching under the pressure. This builds up over a course of time, and that stemmed from me being bullied at school, not being able to, feeling like I couldn't get the support. Going into work environments and being bullied there as well because I hadn't healed those previous pains. Being frustrated with being overlooked for promotions. And I'm talking about all the way through my life. And all these frustration and aggression, and doing the work that I felt like I was being told to do. So rather than fulfilling my purpose and having autonomy and getting creative with my work, I was always being told, you have to do this. And that, again, tension builds up. But then it builds up kind of, okay, so I learn a skill to make me better. And then I use that skill to tell people how much better I am than them. And that's where the arrogance starts to build up. I get to a point though, and how long ago? 7 years ago, 7.5 years ago almost, I was having a crisis of leadership. My team wasn't performing. They're just under average. So we could kind of get away with not getting in trouble, but because everyone else was in the same boat. But I was just, this isn't okay. Didn't matter if what I said, how I shouted, how I rewarded, how I recognized, couldn't get the team to move. And all their performance metrics were, just shot all over the place. And then December 4th, my daughter arrives, or is about to arrive. And I'm having this crisis of leadership. I can't perform. I can't get this team to move. My daughter is about to arrive, and I'm about to become a parent for the first time. Who the hell am I? I'm 42 now, so this is around 35 years old, 34, 35. Who am I? What is it I actually want to create in the world? How am I going to do this? How am I going to make a difference? I'm failing. I'm a failure to this team. I'm going to be a failure to my daughter before she even arrives, because I can't even get these people to perform. So how the hell am I going to support being a father? So I snap mentally. I'm going over the edge at this point. And at that point, I switched on YouTube, and I was like, how to be a great leader. I just Googled, bam. First video comes up, Simon Sinek, How Great Leaders Inspire Action. If you haven't watched that, that's his 18 minutes and 34 seconds abbreviation of Start With Why. I was like that, holy shit. So I may have watched it about 18 times in a row just to make sure I got my head completely wrapped around it. And that rewired something. It's like, and I started to understand, because some of the major events that have happened in my life, from being bullied at school, not processing that pain, overdosing on recreational drugs at 24 after I returned back from traveling the world. The only thing that ever pulled me back from the brink was understanding that I had a purpose. And whatever it was, something was wired into me that I was designed to be bringing, not meant to be bringing. There's something in me that was designed to be brought forward. And it didn't involve dying. And it didn't involve being a subpar person. It didn't involve being mediocre. So all this stuff funneled in, and this guy just speaks some wisdom. He just gives me that clarity. And often you don't hear what you're thinking until someone tells you. And it's the right marketing. Maybe you heard the message 99 times before, but you weren't meant to hear it at that point until someone compartmentalized it and wrapped it in a certain kind of way and gives it to you, and you go, shit, I'm in. That flicked the switch. I was like, right, purpose. What is my purpose? Complete game changer. 6 weeks later, I've returned back from paternity leave. I have a conversation with my team and said, look, by the end of this year, this is the objective. You will all be in different jobs in the next 12 months. All of you will get promoted or be in a happier role. Everyone's like that. So what? And then I explained to it, I broke it down. And this was the turning point. I had that conversation in what we call a greasy spoon in the UK. So it's a kind of a bacon and eggs place. And when you go in, you always come out stinking like you're just falling in a deep fat fryer. So I remember it vividly, and I said to these guys, this is the situation. And over the course of that year, I laid out a plan of how I was going to lead by proximity, how I was going to be there to support, not micromanage, but give them the right questions at the right time that were going to make sure that they knew they had the support and love and the respect to make a difference. And I've got to express what happened in this is our target was 40% on sales conversion. We were always aiming for 40%, but only ever getting 33%. Because what happens is if you aim for a target and you put in just enough, if you're aiming for 40% and you aim for 40%, what do you hit? You don't ever hit 40%. We hit 33%, which is why we couldn't. So the first thing I did is I increased the target by 5%. And no other team was doing this. No other team was playing this way. I said, look, our target is now 45% because we're going to lead the way in what we're doing. If we want to change the way that we play and I'm going to deliver a leading performance, we have to lead this whole department. We have to change the way that we work to show other people what's possible. I increased the target by 5%. I put the mental work in, the leadership protocols in place. So, I did the research and laid down the processes and the map for the whole 12 months. So if I increase the target by 5%, what happens to the results? What do you think happens to the results? They go up. How much do they go up by?
I think the natural inclination is to say 5%, but I'm guessing they went up more.
There it is.
This is the natural inclination. I increase the target by 5%. I increase my proximity to these people. The results go up by 9%.
Oh.
Wow.
So we suddenly hit 42%, which means actually we're over target and we're the only team doing that in the whole business.
Mm-hmm.
And also we're head and shoulders above everybody else, let alone just above target. And did we feel bad because we didn't hit 45? No, we felt incredible because we hit 42% and no one else had done it.
Mm.
But it's just that shift of critical point. Pain, I've had enough of suffering. The pain point kicks in. Hold on a minute. Who do I want to be in relation to these people? The adage that I use with people is we're not defined by our environment. We define our environment by what we put into it. So rather than saying this situation is shit or these people are shit or this is a problem, actually, what am I going to put into it that's going to make a difference for these people? And part of that hinges off my daughter arriving and me, my daughter is an external motivation. Who I want to be in relation to her, that's an internal inspiration. That was the big turner for me.
Wow. Yeah, that kind of raises a question for myself. It seems like you've experienced it firsthand. Have you ever heard of the term diminisher and multiplier leadership?
No, new one. Tell me more.
So there's the theory, I guess it's, not really a theory. It's very easily seen that there are two types of leaders, diminishers and multipliers. And diminishers are the ones that are trying to be really good leaders, but they're doing things that are diminishing the people under them. And so there are a lot of accidental diminishers that could be very, very good leaders. And there are a lot of the bad managers out there that are just downright diminishers as well. But it's really interesting because there are, a bunch of different thought camps for this and how, people can be accidental diminishers, where if you're the idea guy and you have all these ideas as a leader and you're bringing them to your team, that can be really good. Or you can accidentally be a diminisher because you're bringing them off on all these different tangents and they're not feeling like they're ever setting on one thing. But multipliers are the leaders who are very obviously there for the people and all of the ways that you were just describing, how are we all gonna do better? And they multiply the people around them instead of diminishing them.
Yeah. And it's interesting that I haven't heard it put that way. For me, there's a couple of elements. One is parenting and leadership are not two sides of the same coin. They're the same thing, exactly the same. Parenting or being a parental or primary caregiver is one of the biggest leadership journeys you'll go on. And the phrase that I heard, and I think I heard this from Jim Quick originally, but it's around parenting, is your outer voice becomes their inner voice. So when you become a parent or when you become a leader, whatever it is you're saying, they start to encode that. They start to build that in. Why? Because as a leader, they see you more than they see their own family. Now, if you spend 40 hours at work or however many, that's more time awake with a person, at work than you do with your significant partner. So if I'm constantly saying things that are putting you down, that are negative and diminishing you, eventually you're going to hardwire that stuff in. That's going to become the norm. As a result of that, when you become a leader, when you are promoted into leadership, you do unto others as was done unto you. You will just repeat that, oh yeah, that's what my boss did, and I got promoted, so that must be the right thing to help other people get promoted, subconsciously or consciously, is bullshit. The other challenge you've got is the human brain's hardwired for negativity. As a result of that, it's easy to pick up the negatives, and you will find, I feel, fewer positive managers out there, like deeply positive managers, and they are fewer and far between. You know, I've done a lot of the negativity and the frustration, and I can see that in a lot of spaces. So that moment you have that kind of, you need to have additional role models. You need to have the people that are going to kind of show you actually what does positivity in the workplace look like. And that doesn't mean naivety. It doesn't mean turning a blind eye or sweeping things on. No. I don't believe in tough love. More often than not, when people say tough love, it just means they're going to be a prick and they're trying to dress it up in some way, shape, or form. Yeah. So it's, there is a time for the hard line. There is a time to say when things are okay and not okay. And as a leader, you need to bring that as much as you do a parent as well.
That kind of sparked another question that I wanted to ask you was, not so much like in the workplace itself, but, in the industry specifically, who do you look up to? I know some of the big names you have, Tony Robbins. I know Gary Vee is getting, pretty big, especially on the media front, Simon Sinek, a lot of these other people. Like, who do you personally look up to? Who do you, like follow? Who do you really enjoy? Who do you agree with? Who are those people for you?
I think one thing I've learned is, and this is from martial arts. So when the martial arts that I trained and I was teaching was capoeira, and it's a very organic form, like a hugely organic form. There is kind of set movements, but if I train with a guy that's kind of tall and slim and he moves one way. If I train with a guy that's shorter and stockier, they move in a different way, and you kind of end up pulling little elements out here and there. And you almost have to become like a magpie of thinking, and you grab the shiniest objects that are most relevant to you, and what's relevant to each of you individually is going to be different to what's relevant to me. So what I do is I digest certain elements of people. I'm also mindful of not diving into too many people, too many thoughts. I think if you watch 10 hours of podcasts and 10 hours of thought-provoking entertainment on YouTube, it's no different to watching 10 hours of Netflix. You still haven't got anything done. So for me, you're better off, you find one person and you kind of drill into that for a little bit. For me, one of the key resources, yes, I started with Simon. I'm looking at his book, which is what I'm looking up there right now, is that one. Start with why. That triggered a few things, expanded the thinking. And then I watched some Impact Theory with Tom Bilyeu. And some of the guys he's getting on there, the likes of Peter Diamandis, David Eagleman. And if you haven't watched the David Eagleman episode of Impact Theory, it's one of the older episodes, watch it and then just pick up the end bit when Tom Bilyeu says, oh, so what are you working on at the moment? He says, oh, I'm just inventing the next human sense. It's one of my small projects. And you're like, holy shit, what did he just say? He's inventing the next human sense, and that's one of his small projects. And that, for me, literally ruptured something. I was just like, okay, if this guy's doing that, what does that look like in coaching? Now, if he's going this far out of the box and he's not even doubting himself, questioning, okay, where can I take coaching? Where can I take leadership development from? So you do that, and then you kind of, you start just picking up these little nuggets of wisdom and just start packaging it, and then it becomes organically you. Another guy on my bookshelf, Felix Dennis, How to Get Rich, his book is a magazine publisher from the 80s and 90s. His plan was to die without any money in his bank. He got it down to 900 million, unfortunately, in accessible cash before he died. I mean, he was trying, but he just didn't. And his thing was to treat every job like an apprenticeship. So, if you read a book or if you listen to a podcast and you just get that one nugget that you can go, I need to share that with people. Now, you take that one line and you share it and it creates impact. So Simon, Tom Bilyeu for the guests he gets in, David Eagleman as a neuroscientist. I'm looking at my bookshelf up here. Who else have we got? Robin Sharma, Tim Ferriss a little bit. Crikey. And then we get into kind of the stranger realms. Ryan Holiday is a fairly normal one, but then you get up to kind of David Hawkins type stuff where you're looking at the realms of, Stanislav Grof for the realms of the human subconscious, I think it is, that sort of stuff. But again, it's there is no boundary to the idea. If you can take two ideas and hold them in parallel, it's almost like, if you get two people together and you're talking about something, you create that third mind, that third object appears. When you bring two different ideas together, there's that margin where the boundaries touch and something new develops out of that. So, I don't think it can be one thing or one book or one theory. I mean, I look at my bookshelf, you go from reality is not what it seems to the one thing to samurai history. And then it's Life on the Edge, which is quantum biology. And to be honest, that quantum biology book, that scares the life out of me. I've read the first page and I haven't even got into it. It's just like, holy shit, where's this going? But I think you have to have this diversity of ideas.
Yeah.
To cultivate this organic growth of whatever a new idea is, to kind of just be out there and do your thing.
I think that's a great mindset and mentality, a definitely good perspective, keeping an open mind and getting different opinions and ideologies. And I think it's a very wise approach. I think that's great. A couple of things, it just reminded me, Mike here loves books. I love reading myself, but Michael here, always impresses me with his bookshelf and all the stuff. I just find it interesting. Mike, have you read anything by some of these artists? I know you've read a ton of different books. Do you have any similar thoughts? Do you like the same kind of people as Nathan here? What are your thoughts?
Yeah. I mean, I've read Leaders Eat Last, Start with Why, Find Your Why. All of those are absolutely fantastic. And then just hearing you talk about the books you have, Nathan, made me think of the book I'm currently reading right now, which I'd recommend to you as well. It's called Range. And it talks about how human beings, the way that we're hardwired to learn and to experience things, especially in today's current kind of day and age of highly specialization. It's really powerful to have the kind of variety of interests and depth of insight into a wide number of fields. So literally, like you said, treating jobs like apprenticeships, being willing to leave a job if it's really not what you were looking for, kind of looking for that match quality as a human being. That is exactly what you guys were talking about, and I love that. So I definitely recommend Range. Fantastic book. I'm kind of just on that topic actually, so it worked out really well.
Yeah, nice. And I think that's the second someone else recommended that. Who's it by? Remind me who's it by.
It's
if he's got it to hand.
Well, while he does that, while he looks that up, we heard you say crikey. So if you wouldn't mind explaining where you're from. I don't think we asked that or talked about that at the beginning. We'd love to go into that too.
So Hastings, UK. So I am about an hour and a half, pretty much directly south from London on the south coast. So if I lean out of my window, I can see the sea. If anyone's into English history, the Norman invasion, 1066, the French Norsemen invaded and took over England for the better. And we also invented TV. I didn't, but TV was invented here in Hastings. So yeah, we're part of the problem.
It's a lovely place. I've been there. There's a wonderful and near the Hastings Museum, there's a wonderful tea cafe.
Shut the front door.
In my life. So, no, seriously, I love Hastings. It's a lovely place. A short train ride from London. It's not bad.
This is just odd. I mean, no one's people no, I have no idea. Carry on. And you're yeah, I've been there.
Oh, that's just funny. Another question too. I see that you have a drink with you. What is it? Is it tea? Is it coffee? What is it?
Herbal tea at this time of day. I am super caffeine sensitive. At the moment I hit kind of 2:30, and if I even drink a cup of black tea or let alone coffee, I'm awake until 11:30, 12. So 3 ginger. This stuff is phenomenal. 3 gingers.
All right. Is that I guess that's another question for you. What's your favorite tea? Are you an avid tea drinker? Is that a daily thing for you? For me, I love coffee. I also really enjoy tea. So I'm always, wanting to know what's really good tea.
For me at home, tea a lot. But when I go out, we don't have the facilities at home to make a nice cup of cappuccino. So we go to the cafes, they make us a cappuccino. In the evening, herbal teas, 3 ginger, 3 fennel, pucker herbs. Let's just do a product drop right there. Pucker herbs, amazing. But for me, I think after a while, people get really fussy with the tea they're drinking here. We drink, I think it's Clipper everyday tea, and it's strong, organic black tea. Yeah, yeah, it's a really, really strong potent taste, and I'll leave it to brew for at least 7 to 8 minutes, so it's ridiculously strong at that point in time.
Wow. I know Mike and I are big fans of Darjeeling. That's
Nice.
my
Yeah.
favorite for sure. But back to the theme of books. I'm
Yep.
curious because it's an off the wall book not many people have heard of. Have you ever heard of a book called The Wake
The Wake.
by Paul Kingsnorth?
I feel like I have heard of the name, but not read the book. Tell me more.
You should read the book. So it's actually Paul Kingsnorth. It's written in his kind of imaginary language, which is a hybrid between Old English and Modern English. So it's a tough read. There's an index in the back, actually, that you have to go through before you even start reading the book to understand what half the words are. It's something I read for literature in college, but it's on the Norman invasion. And so it would be interesting for you to read that because it's kind of centered around where you are.
Yeah, nice. I'll look that up. The thing is, when you said The Wake, there's a lot of things that are going on for me at the moment, which is around death. And I don't say that morbidly. So some of the stuff that I do in my coaching and my deep one-to-one work is about getting people to acknowledge the fact they're going to die. And, you know, we have to, it's that whole thing of start with the end in mind, and begin with the end in mind, Stephen R. Covey. You know, the one end, though, that we're all ignoring and we're not dealing with is actually the one where we're going to die. It's going to happen at some point. And when you start to kind of face into that and kind of accept it and work with it and acknowledge it's going to happen, then you can actually start going, you know what, actually, what do I want to put in my life? What do I want to include every day that's actually going to be, you know, every day of my life becomes my life in miniature. So even if I get hit by a bus tomorrow, I can still say that I lived a full life. And living a full life is, you know, is relative terms. Wherever you finish, you've always lived a full life. You're not in denial about that. It's just having that concept of actually I can put everything into this day and make it complete. So, you know, that talking about the wake just fires up those ideas of kind of inspiring that thinking in myself to make sure that actually I do that. So actually when someone goes to my wake or someone goes to someone else's wake, there isn't that level of regret. Oh, his life ended too soon, or that ended, or no, it wasn't, he didn't live a full, no, bullshit. No, any given moment is complete.
I got rolling off that. I have a quick question, and then real quick, Range is written by David Epstein. I looked that up. So David Epstein there. But you know, for you, that's so beautiful to live, you know, in that mode of recognizing that life is fleeting. You could die any day. Having those complete days, like you said, for you, what are like the practical ways that you do that on a daily basis? Is, you know, is there certain like steps you take every day or certain kind of a methodology?
And it's clearer now. For me, one was getting into my goal setting and getting super clear. Understanding my purpose and being super clear on what my purpose is and being able to articulate it clearly. And it's the first words that come out of my mouth every single day. Setting an extraordinary goal, one that I know that I may not accomplish in this lifetime, but impacts millions of people. The idea is you set a goal that you may not accomplish in this lifetime, and rather than chase your passions, you chase your potential. And in that way, you know you're always working because your goal is always going to move. As you progress and evolve, so will your goals. So technically, you'll never achieve it anyway. So it's never about the flag in the sand that you're going to. It's about the person you have to become in order to make that a reality. The second, and it's a recent thing that I've started to learn more over the last 12 months, is when you're putting yourself into resistance about something, all you're doing is holding yourself back from moving. The more that you live in that space where your reality doesn't meet the expectation in your head, all you're doing is fostering and developing frustration. And then that then just bleeds into the conversations you have with people. So, you know, if certain things are happening, is getting comfortable when people say, I'm not meant to be here. I'm not meant to be doing this job. I'm meant to be doing something else. It's bullshit. All you're doing is blaming other people for the circumstance which doesn't match up with what you see in your head. When you can start to feel that and you go, actually, this is what I am meant to be doing right now. What is it I need to learn from this that helps me to move forward? And that way you start to move and evolve faster. Rather than getting stuck in the moment and the pain turns to suffering and you end up rotting in that space, you develop and shift it. The practical terms is actually, how does this feel? Do I feel frustrated? What is it about that situation that's causing me frustration? Okay, well, rather than sit in this, how do I what is it I need to do that's going to make that better, that's going to help me improve that for next time? What can I do differently so I can live up to that potential? Because we're not designed as, in spirit, in essence, to spend our lives pissing and moaning about stuff. That's not, oh yeah, I woke up today I'm going to be miserable, abjectly miserable, be pissy and moany, and make other people's day a misery. Oh no, that's not why we're here. We get caught in that, though. We get caught in the distraction. It's when you feel that, okay, actually, what can I do to improve this? How can I evolve from this? How can I grow out of this? What I say to people often is, shit is the best fertilizer. And you have a choice, yeah. If you, and I can show you. Look, I'm not even joking. Hold on 2 seconds. Look,
That is amazing.
These are my squash plants. Yeah, these are in my office. They're growing because it's the sunniest windowsill here. Yeah. If you put a seed into manure, into that, it's the greatest fertilizer. If you leave the seed in the manure, what happens to the seed? It rots out and dies. So it's the same with the human psyche and the human being. If you want to sit in there and just stay in that shit for too long, you're going to rot. You can either stick your roots in it and grow out of it. So when you talk about one of these practical approaches, key questions is use the questions to focus your attention. If you feel yourself pointing your finger at other people and complaining, have a look where you're pointing your finger. Is it pointing to where you want to be going and pointing at you to see how you can do it? Because if it isn't, you're wasting time and you're not living up to your full potential.
We need to make that a t-shirt.
I love that. So,
Yeah.
we'll put your name on it. Like if that's your quote, like we'll make sure we cite you. But I think we might have to make a shirt with that. That's amazing. That's actually amazing.
Oh man.
But it's so true. It is really true. You're hitting on something there.
I love what you said about, if you're not pointing towards where you want to go, if you're pointing fingers, blaming other people, what good is that when you could instead be pointing, giving yourself that direction to where you want to go, who you want to be? Like that. I love that.
Yeah.
I love that.
Thank you. And your brain can only focus on one thing at a time. If you want to choose where you're going, is, for me, one of the other analogies I use is like driving your car. But if you're driving around in your car and you're constantly looking in the rear view mirror, what are you actually seeing? Are you looking where you're going or complaining about what's behind you? The challenge is, though, that when we do this for too long, the rear view mirror expands and it's almost the size of the windscreen. And we're too busy looking out the back, hitting things and then complaining about it when we look behind us and there's bits of our car behind us or car crashes happening, rather than looking where we're going. So when we get to that point, is what happens? Who are you normally looking at when you're having an argument at the traffic lights? It's the person next to you. And what normally happens? You put your foot down and slam into the car in front of you because you're not paying attention. Why? Because you got angry at somebody else. And all you did was cause damage to yourself. Guarantee 9 out of 10 accidents happen that way when people get irate at the traffic lights. Guarantee.
Yeah. No, I mean that's very true. Yeah. So switching gears a little bit, I want to know more about, leadership coaching, and all of that, but specifically, like, walk us through your process. Like, what does that look like? I know you kind of mentioned before the one-on-one. So maybe like, let's focus on that a little bit more specifically. What does that look like? Say I go to you and say, Nathan, like, I want to have one-on-one coaching with you. Like, what happens? What's the process there?
And also to interject, sorry, like who normally is the client that's coming to talk to you? I think that'll give our listeners a better understanding as well. With Chris's question, what's your process? Who are you usually going through that process with as well?
Good questions. I like it. So firstly is kind of that ideal client avatar person. They're people leader or middle management. Anywhere, it depends where they are in their process of thinking, growth or whatever, mid-20s to late 30s, early 40s. That's kind of it, because different people evolve at different times. The job role, though, is predominantly the people leader and people manager. These people tend to be frustrated because they haven't got the support they wanted. They tend to be frustrated because they feel like they've got more to give, but no one's able to give them the answers. They also feel like they're a bit of an outsider, because they feel like a bit of a maverick testing out stuff, but people are kind of looking at them like, what are you doing? And they haven't got those mentors or those people around them to help give them that extra initial guidance and support and say, do you know what, actually you're doing the right thing. They're not hearing that from other people. And as happened with me and many other people, you start getting that workplace anxiety and depression kicking in because you can't express yourself. Your potential is being restricted. You feel like I said earlier, that work you're being told to do. And you can't, you haven't got the autonomy to get creative. And it just becomes all consuming because you just don't feel good. And I did it myself, sitting on the toilet at 8:10 in the morning, staring at the back of the toilet door, the lid's down, so I'm fully clothed at this point, sitting on the toilet lid, just staring at the back of the door going, what if I went home and didn't tell anyone? Would anyone actually care? Would anyone notice? And at no point in our, we're not designed to do this. We don't go to a job for 40 years or whatever to go and sit on a toilet lid and think, what's the point? There's something we are designed to do. It's not what we're meant to be doing. What we're doing, like I said earlier, is we're doing exactly what we're meant to be doing. What we're designed to be doing, if we tap into that, is something wholly different. And it's when people feel like that, then they come and see me. And then they know that I'm going to put the appropriate pressure on that's going to cause the appropriate outcome that's going to cause them to shift gears. How I do that then is I take them through a 12-week process, one-to-one coaching that primarily at the moment, initially for these sorts of people, is a program I call the Independent Leader. And it takes them through 12 weeks of breaking this process down. First thing is, why do you do what you do? High level, and I can go deep dive on this for a week with a person just on that section, but high level, just to give enough flavor to help them make that, get an understanding. What jobs do you want to be doing? Where do you want to be going with this? And I'll give them exercises and stuff just to dig into this. Actually, what's important to you? What is it about your job you actually like? Because there was a reason why you said yes to the job in the first place. You just forgot along the way, which is why you're miserable now. And getting people to start extracting that stuff out. Oh, I enjoy this bit. Oh, this bit over here creates pride. This bit makes me excited when I think about it. Okay, great. Well, what job could you be doing that allows you to do that stuff 80% of your time? Oh, I could be doing that. Okay, how exciting is that? Fuck, that's exciting. Great. Then I'll take you when we start looking at your resume. What does your resume actually say about you? Is it telling the story of your life? Is it telling, is it highlighting your accomplishments rather than just your day-to-day responsibilities? Because no one cares what you do. If I said, I ran a shop, you could all stand here and tell me 5 things I do to run a shop. Do I need to put that on a resume just to show the world? No, no one gives a shit. What did you do when you were in the shop that made a difference? How did you help? How did you add value? That's what people want to see. So I'll take you through that. Then we look at content. We look at case studies, how you can build it. And then we create a 12-month plan. And we break it down over 12 months. And you can structure that down into 100-day activities of where you're building content, building skill set, you're building approaches. So you've got a clear map for 12 months that you can follow through that's going to help you get promoted or move you into a job that you actually want to be doing. Last part then is I will then support you in the most loving possible way to start making applications. Because everyone says, oh, I don't like doing interviews, I'm not very good at them. Yes, because maybe you do 8 job interviews in your whole life. No wonder you're not good at doing them. So the first thing you need to do is get out of your own way and just start applying for jobs. Whether it's for the job you want to do, or whether it's just jobs of a similar vein, or whether it's just in agencies, get yourself out there and start putting your name out there and getting job requests coming through. And then go and practice your interviews. The worst thing that happens is you go for a job in another company or the same company for the job you really want. They say no and they give you feedback. Then you go and take that feedback and develop it for the next interview. Best case scenario, by accident or something really happens, they go, crikey, your resume is really good, love the way you're interviewing, and all of a sudden you've got the job. But if you then do that and they give you the job, it's a win-win. But if you do it and you don't get the job, it's still a win-win because you're learning and getting ready for the next one. And then that last part of that last 3 weeks of the 12 weeks is just going back over this stuff and just helping you to embed, this is the feedback, this is what it looks like, here's the tweak, here's the adjustment. And all the way through, I'm just breaking down mindsets and limitations that we apply and BS stories that we've learned from our parents, our grandparents, someone else, because Uncle Bob in 1572 got attacked by wild seaweed, so you shouldn't apply for this job and da-da-da-da-da. But it's true though, isn't it? Yeah, it's just like, oh, don't go for that job because it's like that. Oh, you don't. Oh no, Uncle so and so did that, and it was an awful time. And then our friends say, oh, you shouldn't do that because that's an awful. Don't apply to them because they're really bad people. And it's like, well, according to who? It might be the best job you ever go to, but you decide not to go for the job because Sally next door said she had a really bad time. But that's because Sally's Sally, and you're Chris, John, and Mike. It's got nothing to do with that, So for me, part of it is demystifying the limitations that we've learned from other people as well through that process.
That's brilliant. Yeah, I mean that sounds very well thought out, very elaborate. I really appreciate you walking us through that. Thank you for that. My next question is to go off of that then is for all of our listeners and viewers, if they want, to try this out, if they were interested, how, what's the best way for them to reach you, to sign up? Do you have a website? Would it be like through LinkedIn? Like if people are interested in taking you up on this journey, like what do they have to do?
Two easiest routes. One is my website, nathansimmondscoaching.com. I'm going to be doing a revamp in the near future of that. On there, you can sign up for a free 15-day email course, which I've got the 5 core pillars of leadership that I believe need to be included. And that takes you over 3 weeks of free content every day into your inbox. You can sign up or just speak to me through there, or LinkedIn. A lot of my stuff is already on LinkedIn. You send me a message on there. I've got a new PDF. It's so new, I haven't even got a landing page for it, so you have to direct message me to pick it up, okay? And that PDF is 4 things to stop doing to get promoted. And 4 uncommon things, that you haven't even thought about that are stopping you from getting promoted. So you just message me and I will send you everything that you need. You can start getting your teeth into it if you want to go through this process with me. Here's the clincher. Most of the people that I work with are obligated to something. They've got a house, they've got kids, they've got something going on. Most people, the same as me previously, haven't got the additional resources to hire a coach. Coaches, in the nicest possible way, ain't cheap. And the further you go up the kind of the food chain, the more expensive they get. Why? Because you're paying for access, you're paying for thinking, you're paying for all those things. I get it. So what I do when I'm talking about this is you pay me a deposit. We talk about that deposit and the rest is payable on results. You get promoted, you pay me. I want a deposit just to cover some of the utilities, of the services and the website and all those sorts of things. The lion's share of that, you pay me on the result. When you get promoted, you come back and you pay me that money, and I will give you that support every single time you go for an interview to make sure you get promoted. A, because I want to make sure I get paid, but B, I want to make sure that you're out there doing the work that fills you full of joy when you're going to work, so you can smile when you get to work and you can enjoy it. You feel inspired and you want to go and make a difference in other people's worlds.
Wow, that's incredible, and we'll be sharing all of that too for all of you listeners and viewers. We'll be sharing the links and all of that stuff for sure.
Yeah. That PDF with the 4 things, you have a little bit of a teaser.
Man, one of the things that blows people's brains, this is people doing the wrong overtime. And what do I mean by this? If you're doing your job for 40 hours a week, everyone says, do overtime, it looks good to the boss. So you do 20 hours of overtime in the job you're doing. All you're doing is making it more difficult to promote, because now you're doing the work of 1.5 people. So you might be looking good, but you're looking good in the job that you are doing, not the job that you want to have. So what I say to people is you're better off doing half the overtime and then go and spend another 3-4 hours working at the level above or in the department that you want to work in for free, because you'll probably spend that time at work anyway, because you get there half an hour early or you leave an hour late to make sure that you're not stuck in traffic or whatever. Is you use that time instead to go and work in the job that you want to do for free, to show willingness and build the skill set to go and get promoted to do it. And the best bit is, even if you don't get promoted, you can still put it on your CV to say that you were doing that job, so you've got enough experience to then go and get the job somewhere else. You're not lying, because you've already done it. You already speak the language, and most people don't care. They just want to hear the words coming out of your mouth. Does the words coming out of his mouth validate that he's got the experience that sits behind it? Is he speaking the language of this department? Does he know what he's talking about? So we do that. Stop doing the wrong overtime. That's the big one.
I think that parallels to entrepreneurs too, where you're putting in the work. And if it's your own business and maybe you're already at the top, maybe you're the CEO of the company, you can still be putting in the wrong overtime.
Yeah. And it is exactly that to entrepreneurs, is we tie ourselves in knots. Oh, I've got to go and do all my media stuff. Oh, I've got to go and do all my graphic design. Oh, I've got to do all of this. No, we don't have to do that. Go and do the things that you enjoy doing. Get in your zone of genius, in your zone of expertise, and outsource that, because otherwise you're just strangling your own business. Yeah, okay, initially you might have to do it. There comes a tipping point though when you'd rather spend that time focusing on something else.
100%.
That's huge. That's huge. Well, it looks like we're running out of time. So guys, if you have any last questions, now is definitely the time to go for it. I know time went way too quickly. I'm loving this.
What's your favorite like thing to do in England? Because I'm looking to hopefully to go back after the coronavirus is over. Hopefully we'll see what happens, but I'm looking forward to going back. What's your favorite site that you've ever been to?
For me, it's always the Natural History Museum in London.
Yeah.
The architecture in that place is off the hook, like on without it, it is. But then when you go in there and you've got the blue whale in the main hall, and all the other stuff going, it's just. And we go there with our daughter. We went there for one of her birthdays, and it's just so much to see and do. Just concentrated in that space. Number 2 space, Kew Gardens. If you haven't been to Kew Gardens, that is also beautiful as well, from an architectural point of view and from a garden point of view as well, if you're into that. So yeah, those are the 2 big ones for me.
Awesome.
So this one might be a little controversial. Who's your favorite football team?
Oh, I should have asked that. Oh yeah.
I don't have one. I was never a football follower.
That's perfect. You can be a Liverpool fan then. Mike and I, and John Michael, I think you are too. We're Liverpool fans. So. I also love Barcelona, so if you want to go for them too, that's fine. But Liverpool will do too.
So for me, when I was actually at school, because of the height, we started playing basketball. We played okay basketball for where we were in the UK. So we were at the height of Jordan and the Bulls coming out of that, and kind of the end of Magic Johnson. So yeah, kind of Bulls fan pretty much. If I'm going to go to any team, it's going to be them.
All right. I know my brother who listens, he's going to appreciate that. He's a huge Bulls fan. So
Nice.
That's awesome. That's awesome. Well, ladies and gentlemen, Nathan Simmonds, thank you so much, Nathan, for being with us. It really means so much. I know I learned a lot from this episode, and it's been awesome to have you. So thank you so much for taking the time out of your busy day and schedule. It really means a lot to us.
Super grateful. Thank you, gentlemen. Very appreciated. And thank you, everyone, for being here and listening. Yes.
And for all of our listeners and viewers, thank you so much for tuning in to another episode of Canopy Cast. We'll catch you next time.